पहले यहाँ कुछ भी नहीं था, जंगल था, सिर्फ ये सिंगल रोड था.
Everything started with a massive riot in 69, but there were others, 85, 92, and of course 2002. That was the most devastating one, because the 2002 riots also affected middle-class Muslims.
We try to, of course, look at how the poor in Muslim localities are often the backward castes and how do they live, but we have also tried to look at how the elites are negotiating the space. That we are trying to highlight in the chapter to complicate the picture of how a Muslim ghetto is traditionally termed.
A ghetto is made of 5 major characteristics. You go to a ghetto because of constraint, social, political, security-related constraints. Secondly, a ghetto is diverse in class and caste terms, and I'll return to that because it's not a slum. A slum, of course, is for the poor. A ghetto is for the rich as well. And third, the neglect of the local and state authorities. Fourth, the estrangement of the locality from the rest of the city. And last but not least, you have a subjective sense of closure of the residents, as if they were separate.
बार-बार दंगे हुए, चाहे 1980 का दंगा उठा लो, 82 का उठा लो, 85 का उठा लो, 92 का बाबरी मस्जिद का 2002 उठा लो, दंगे होते रहे और दंगों के कारण लोग अपनी सेफ्टी के लिए, अपने बच्चों के लिए, अपने परिवार के लिए ये जुहापुरा की तरफ आए.
This area kind of built up from the 90s, specifically after Babri riots, because Muslims fled from old city, industrial areas, as well as some elite localities of Western Ahmedabad towards Juhapura, because land was also cheaper.
And in Ahmedabad, like in Surat, Baroda, few cities of Gujarat, there is a law, the Disturbed Areas Act, that makes it very difficult for someone from one community to rent or sell some land or some property to someone from another community.
Broadly, 40% of Ahmedabad has been declared as disturbed. For Juhapura, it means that all the peripheries, because it's a huge area, all the peripheries, the so-called borders, are declared as disturbed, and that's where really the expansion or non-expansion can take place.
So the space is very limited, and it's limited, you can say, on purpose. There is a wall separating Juhapura from the adjacent Hindu neighborhood, and there is a colony for the families of policemen that has been built also on the border of Juhapura. So Juhapura cannot expand so much.
This law, in a legal sense, puts Muslims into a second-class citizenship status is a very cliched understanding, and that's true. But it really forces them to go and live in ghettos where there is very substandard public services.
The paradox of ghettoization is something I'd like to elaborate upon, because after 2002, as I said, so many middle-class Muslims going to Juhapura, which was a very poor place till then, a kind of slum, if you want. And these middle-class people, because they had some financial capital, because they had some, you can say, intellectual capital, because they had some connections, paradoxically developed the ghetto.
On the face of it, it may look like that it is benefiting everybody, but it is not, except in cases where some elites have started schools, and a lot of them have. Some have started healthcare centers, and a lot of them have. But philanthropy is always insufficient to meet the state inadequacies.
Middle-class people also somewhat gentrified parts of Juhapura. And that's what is so strange, to see a Muslim ghetto differentiated along socioeconomic lines.
And we see that since the time elites have moved in, the poor have started to move more and more inside the periphery of Juhapura. And this is where really the public services are lacking. We see there is a clear tension between poor and rich Muslims, and we also highlight there's a clear tension between the lower caste and so-called Ashraf Muslims, who are the upper sections of the Muslim society.
जो डेवलप की बात आती है, तो जब मुस्लिम विस्तार, आज हमारा इतना बड़ा एरिया है, इस विस्तार में आप एक बाग उठा के बता दो कि यहाँ पर एक बागीचा है गवर्नमेंट का बनाया हुआ, या एक ऐसी पानी की यहाँ नज़दीक में टंकियाँ, एक स्कूल बता दो कि यहाँ पर एक ये बड़ी स्कूल है बच्चों के लिए, ये कोई भी प्राथमिक ज़रूरियात की जो चीज़ होती है वो यहाँ पर मौजूद नहीं है.
NGOs developed by the middle class people I've just mentioned started to develop schools, clinics, and therefore the paradox was that ghettoization helped. What the NGOs in question did was to lobby the state in order to make the state, to force the state to do something for Juhapura. The state was not there, so self-help became the recipe. So we saw a kind of privately developed city.
Second, we cite examples of how a lot of women activists came into activism in Gujarat precisely because of 2002 riots, because there is kind of very strong psychological trauma that provoked a lot of women activists from the community to go into activism. What has happened with the rise of BJP is that the law has been used in a manner that really the areas where there is some kind of ambiguous boundary between where Muslims live and where Hindus live, that's where the law strikes.
And a place like Juhapura, a place like Ahmedabad now, has something like 40% of its geography under this law. So ghettoization becomes not only de facto, but also de jure. It's in the law.
And this really says that you do not need to change the constitution to have a Hindu Rashtra. You only need to have a state bureaucracy which believes in the same ideology that you believe. You only need to have key people at key institutions, including in judiciary, to do the acts that you can do just by subverting the interpretation of constitutional laws and so on.